Maria Washington pulled her old Honda Civic into the employee parking lot at 4:30 in the morning, just like she had done every weekday for the past 12 years. The security lights cast long shadows across the empty lot of Sterling Industries, one of the city's most successful tech companies. At 52 years old, Maria moved with the steady purpose of someone who had learned that hard work and dignity went hand in hand, regardless of what others might think about her job. She grabbed her thermos of coffee and the small lunch bag she had packed the night before. Every penny counted in Maria's world, so she never bought food from the company cafeteria. The brown bag contained a peanut butter sandwich, an apple, and a small container of leftover rice and beans from dinner. It wasn't much, but it would keep her going through her 10-hour shift. Maria had worked as a janitor for most of her adult life. She had started cleaning office buildings when her daughter Keisha was just 3 years old, after her husband Marcus had been laid off from the factory. What was supposed to be temporary work while Marcus found another job became permanent when he was diagnosed with diabetes and struggled to find employment that would provide health insurance for his condition. The Sterling Industries building was a gleaming 40-story tower in the heart of downtown. Maria was responsible for cleaning 15 floors, from the executive suites on the top levels down to the research and development departments in the middle floors. She knew every corner of those floors, every stain that appeared regularly, every office that stayed messy, and every one that was kept neat. As she entered through the service entrance, Maria nodded to Jerome, the security guard who had become a friend over the years. Jerome was one of the few people in the building who always treated her with genuine respect and kindness. "Morning, Maria," Jerome said with a warm smile. "How's Keisha doing with her studies?" "She's doing real good," Maria replied, her face lighting up with pride. "Got another A on her chemistry test. That girl is going to be a doctor someday. I just know it." Jerome had heard Maria talk about her daughter's dreams countless times, and he never got tired of seeing the joy in her eyes when she spoke about Keisha's achievements. "You're doing something right, that's for sure," he said. Maria made her way to the supply closet on the 30th floor, where she kept her cleaning equipment. She had developed a precise routine over the years that allowed her to clean all 15 floors efficiently while maintaining the high standards that had kept her employed at Sterling Industries longer than most janitors lasted anywhere. She started each day on the top floors where the executives worked. These offices were usually the cleanest because the executives had their own private bathrooms and rarely left much mess. But Maria still vacuumed every carpet thoroughly, dusted every surface, and made sure the windows were spotless. She took pride in her work, even when she knew that most of the people who worked in these offices never really saw her as anything more than part of the building's fixtures. As she cleaned the conference room on the 38th floor, Maria found herself thinking about the conversation she had planned to have with Keisha that evening. Her daughter had been accepted to 3 different colleges, but the financial aid packages still left significant gaps. Even with Keisha working part-time at a local grocery store and maintaining excellent grades that earned her several scholarships, they were still short about $15,000 per year. Maria had been setting aside money from each paycheck for Keisha's education since her daughter was in elementary school. Every month, no matter how tight things got, she would take half of her salary and put it into a special savings account. There were months when this meant eating rice and beans for weeks, months when she couldn't afford to fix her car and had to take 3 buses to get to work, months when she wore the same 2 pairs of work pants until they were nearly threadbare. But Maria had made a promise to herself and to Keisha. Her daughter would go to college, and she would become a doctor. Maria had dropped out of high school when she got pregnant with Keisha, and while she had eventually gotten her GED, she knew that education was the key to a better life. She was determined that Keisha would have opportunities that she had never had. The morning progressed, as it always did. Maria moved through the floors methodically, cleaning bathrooms, emptying trash cans, vacuuming offices, and restocking supplies. She had learned to move quietly and efficiently, finishing her work in each area before the employees arrived so she wouldn't disturb them. Around 7:30 in the morning, As Maria was cleaning the 25th floor, she encountered Dr. Jennifer Collins, one of the research scientists who always arrived early. Dr. Collins was one of the few employees who consistently acknowledged Maria's presence and treated her with respect. "Good morning, Maria," Dr. Collins said as she unlocked her office door. "How are you doing today?" "I'm doing well. Thank you for asking, Dr. Collins," Maria replied. "How's your research going?" Dr. Collins paused, surprised as always by Maria's genuine interest. Most people either ignored the janitorial staff completely or offered only superficial pleasantries. But Maria always asked follow-up questions and seemed to actually care about the answers. "It's going well. Actually," Dr. Collins said, "we're working on a new treatment for childhood leukemia. It's challenging work, but potentially very rewarding if we can make it work." "That sounds really important," Maria said. "My daughter wants to be a doctor. She says she wants to help sick children too." "Your daughter sounds wonderful," Dr. Collins replied. "What's she studying now?" "She's finishing her senior year of high school," Maria said with obvious pride. "She's been accepted to college to study pre-med. She's got big dreams, that one." Dr. Collins noticed something in Maria's voice, a mixture of pride and worry. "College can be expensive," she said gently. "Yes, it is," Maria admitted. "But we'll figure out." "We always do." As Dr. Collins went into her office, she found herself thinking about Maria's situation. She had observed Maria's work ethic over the years and had always been impressed by her professionalism and dedication. The idea that this hardworking woman was struggling to pay for her daughter's education troubled her. Maria continued her work, moving down to the 20th floor where the accounting department was located. As she emptied the trash in one of the offices, she noticed a newspaper article that someone had thrown away about a local charity that helped underprivileged children get school supplies. The article mentioned how even small donations could make a big difference in a child's life. This gave Maria an idea. She had been thinking about how lucky Keisha was to have the opportunity to go to college, even with the financial challenges they faced. There were so many children in their neighborhood who didn't have the same opportunities, whose parents couldn't save money for their education the way Maria had been doing for Keisha. That evening, as Maria drove home through the neighborhoods where she had grown up, she passed the community center where she had volunteered when Keisha was younger. She remembered the children she had met there, bright kids who struggled in school not because they weren't smart, but because they didn't have the resources they needed. Some didn't have quiet places to study at home. Others didn't have computers or internet access to complete assignments. Many came to the center after school because there was nowhere else for them to go while their parents worked multiple jobs to make ends meet. When Maria arrived home, she found Keisha at the kitchen table surrounded by homework and college brochures. Her daughter looked up with a smile that reminded Maria why she worked so hard every day. "Hey, Mom," Keisha said. "How was work today?" "It was good, baby," Maria replied, kissing the top of her daughter's head. "What are you working on?" "I'm trying to figure out the financial aid stuff for next year," Keisha said, her smile fading slightly. "I think I can get a work-study job at whichever school I choose, and maybe I can find some additional scholarships." Maria sat down next to her daughter and looked at the papers spread across the table. The numbers were daunting, even with the scholarships Keisha had already earned. But Maria had been preparing for this moment for years. "Keisha, honey, I need to tell you something," Maria said. "I've been saving money for your college education since you were little. Not just a little bit here and there, but really saving. I've been putting aside half of every paycheck for years." Keisha looked at her mother in surprise. "Half of your paycheck? Mom, how did you manage to do that?" "We've never had much extra money." "We've had enough," Maria said simply. "Maybe not enough for extras, but enough for what we needed. And your education has always been what we needed most." Tears began to form in Keisha's eyes as she realized the magnitude of what her mother had been doing. All those times she had wondered why they couldn't afford new clothes or why they never went out to eat at restaurants. Her mother had been sacrificing to secure her future. "Mom, I don't know what to say," Keisha whispered. "You don't need to say anything," Maria replied. "You just need to become the doctor you've always wanted to be. That's all the thanks I need." As they sat together looking at the college materials, Maria found herself thinking again about the children at the community center and others like them throughout the city. She had been blessed with a daughter who was academically gifted and motivated to succeed. But there were so many other children who had potential but lacked opportunities. Keisha, Maria said slowly, I want to ask you about something. You know how I've been saving for your college? Yes, Keisha replied. Well, I've actually saved more than we need for just your education, Maria continued. I've been putting aside half my salary for so long that there's extra money. And I've been thinking about how we could use some of it to help other children who don't have the same opportunities you've had. Keisha looked at her mother with admiration. Even in the midst of securing her own daughter's future, Maria was thinking about how to help others. What did you have in mind, Mom? There's a program at the community center that helps children with their schoolwork, provides them with supplies and tutoring, Maria explained. I was thinking we could make a donation to help expand that program. Not enough to hurt your college fund, but enough to make a real difference for some kids who need it. Keisha reached over and hugged her mother tightly. I think that's a beautiful idea, Mom. Those kids deserve the same chances I've had. That night, as Maria lay in bed, she thought about the decision she and Keisha had made together. Tomorrow, she would contact the community center about making a donation. It wouldn't be enormous by the standards of the wealthy executives whose offices she cleaned every day, but it would be substantial enough to help several children get the support they needed to succeed in school. Maria had never thought of herself as particularly generous or remarkable. She was just a woman who worked hard, loved her daughter, and tried to do the right thing. But as she drifted off to sleep, she felt a sense of satisfaction that went beyond her pride in Keisha's achievements. She was making a difference in the world, one child at a time. The next morning, Maria arrived at Sterling Industries with the same dedication she brought every day, but with an additional sense of purpose. She had made the decision to help other children not for recognition or praise, but because it was simply the right thing to do. She had no idea that her quiet acts of generosity would soon come to the attention of someone who had the power to change her life forever. As she began her cleaning routine on the 38th floor, Maria had no way of knowing that her story was about to take a turn that would surprise everyone, including herself. Sometimes the most extraordinary things happen to the most ordinary people, and Maria Washington was about to discover that her years of quiet sacrifice and selfless generosity had been noticed by someone who valued those qualities more than she could possibly imagine. 3 weeks after Maria had made her first donation to the Riverside Community Center's after-school program, she established a routine that would define the next phase of her life. Every other Friday, she would drive to the community center after work and hand-deliver an envelope containing $500 in cash to Mrs. Dorothy Henderson, the program coordinator. Mrs. Henderson had been running the after-school program for 8 years, and she had never seen anything quite like Maria's commitment. The money wasn't just handed over casually. Maria would arrive, still in her work uniform, and spend time talking with Mrs. Henderson about how the funds were being used and which children were benefiting most from the additional resources. This week, we were able to buy new reading books for the 3rd and 4th graders, Mrs. Henderson explained during one of Maria's visits. And we hired a part-time math tutor for the kids who were struggling with their homework. Maria nodded with satisfaction. Are there any children who need special help that the program can't provide right now? Mrs. Henderson pulled out a folder containing applications and assessments. There's a boy named Marcus Thompson. He's brilliant at science, but his family can't afford a computer, so he's falling behind on his assignments. And there's a girl named Aaliyah Jones who has incredible artistic talent, but we don't have art supplies for advanced projects. What would it cost to get Marcus a computer and to set up a proper art program for Aaliyah and other kids like her? Maria asked. Mrs. Henderson did some quick calculations. A decent computer would be about $800, and art supplies for a real program would probably need $1,000 to start and maybe $300 a month to maintain. Without hesitation, Maria opened her purse and pulled out an additional envelope. This should cover the computer and get the art program started, she said. I'll make sure there's extra for the monthly supplies. Mrs. Henderson stared at the envelope, then at Maria. I have to ask, where is this money coming from? This is more than most people donate in a year, and you've been doing this consistently for weeks. Maria smiled gently. I work as a janitor at Sterling Industries. I've been saving half my salary for years for my daughter's college education. She's going to be a doctor, you know. But we realized we had saved more than we need for just her schooling, so we decided to help other children who deserve the same chances. Half your salary? Mrs. Henderson repeated, trying to process what she was hearing. For how long? About 12 years, Maria replied matter-of-factly. Ever since my daughter started talking about becoming a doctor, I knew education was the key to giving her a better life than I've had. Mrs. Henderson had worked with charitable donors for most of her career, but she had never encountered anyone quite like Maria Washington. Here was a woman who earned a modest salary cleaning office buildings, yet she was giving away amounts that rivaled donations from much wealthier families in the community. Maria, I have to tell you something, Mrs. Henderson said. What you're doing is extraordinary. I've seen a lot of generous people over the years, but the level of sacrifice you've made for your daughter's education, and now for these children you don't even know personally, it's remarkable. Maria shook her head. It's not remarkable. It's just doing what needs to be done. These children have potential, just like my Keisha. They just need someone to believe in them and give them the tools they need to succeed. As Maria continued her visits to the community center, word began to spread in the neighborhood about the anonymous donor who was transforming the after-school program. The children didn't know who was providing the resources that were changing their lives, but they could see the results every day. Marcus Thompson, the boy who had needed a computer, was now completing all his assignments on time and had even started teaching other kids how to use various software programs. Aaliyah Jones had thrown herself into the art program and was creating pieces that amazed everyone who saw them. The reading program had expanded to include field trips to the local library, and the math tutoring had helped 6 children raise their grades significantly. Meanwhile, at Sterling Industries, Maria continued her work with the same dedication she had always shown. But several employees had begun to notice something different about her. She seemed to have an extra spring in her step, a quiet satisfaction that went beyond her usual professional demeanor. Dr. Jennifer Collins, the research scientist who had always been friendly with Maria, noticed the change most clearly. One morning, as Maria was cleaning the laboratory area, Dr. Collins decided to ask about it. Maria, you seem particularly happy lately, she observed. Is everything going well with your daughter's college plans? Yes, Keisha's doing wonderful, Maria replied. But actually, we've been doing something else that's made me really happy. We've been helping out at the community center in my neighborhood, supporting their after-school program for children who need extra help with their studies. Dr. Collins was intrigued. That sounds like important work. How did you get involved with that? Maria paused in her cleaning and leaned against her cart. Well, I've been saving money for years for Keisha's education. Half of every paycheck, actually. And when we looked at all the college costs, we realized we had saved more than we strictly needed. So we decided to use some of it to help other children who don't have the same opportunities Keisha has had. Dr. Collins felt a chill run down her spine. Did you say half of every paycheck? For how long? About 12 years now, Maria said with a smile. It hasn't always been easy, but seeing what that money can do for these kids makes every sacrifice worth it. Dr. Collins stared at Maria in amazement. She knew approximately what janitors at Sterling Industries earned, and the idea that someone with that income had been saving half of it for over a decade was almost incomprehensible. But what struck her even more was Maria's decision to share that money with children she didn't even know personally. Maria, that's incredible, Dr. Collins said. Do you mind me asking how much you've been able to help the community center? Oh, I don't like to talk about specific amounts, Maria replied modestly. But we've been able to help them expand their tutoring program, buy supplies and equipment the children need, and support some special projects. There's a boy who's really gifted at science, and a girl who's an amazing artist. It's wonderful to see them have the chance to develop their talents. After Maria moved on to clean the next area, Dr. Collins remained at her laboratory, deeply moved by what she had heard. She had always respected Maria's work ethic and professionalism, but this revelation showed a level of selflessness and generosity that was truly extraordinary. Dr. Collins found herself thinking about Maria throughout the day. That evening, she mentioned the conversation to her husband over dinner. "You know the janitor I've told you about at work? The one whose daughter wants to be a doctor?" she said. "Yes, Maria, right?" her husband replied. "I found out today that she's been saving half her salary for 12 years to pay for her daughter's college education," Dr. Collins continued. "And not only that, but she and her daughter decided they had saved more than they needed. So now they're donating significant amounts to a community center to help other children." Her husband put down his fork and stared at her. Half her salary? For 12 years. That's what she said. And she talked about it like it was the most natural thing in the world, like of course that's what any parent would do. "That's extraordinary," he said. "Do you know how much money that would be?" Dr. Collins did some quick mental calculations. If she makes around $30,000 a year, which is probably about right for her position, that would be about $180,000 over 12 years. Even if some of it goes to her daughter's college, she's probably donated tens of thousands of dollars to this community center. They sat in silence for a moment, contemplating the magnitude of Maria's sacrifice and generosity. "You know," Dr. Collins said slowly, "I think someone should know about this. Really know about it. What Maria is doing is remarkable, and I think it deserves recognition." The next morning, Dr. Collins found herself in an unusual position. She had never been one to involve herself in company politics or social dynamics, but Maria's story had affected her so deeply that she felt compelled to share it with someone who might be in a position to appreciate its significance. She decided to write an email to the company's human resources department, thinking they might be interested in featuring Maria's story in the company newsletter as an example of employee community involvement. But as she began typing, she realized that the story was bigger than a newsletter feature. Instead, Dr. Collins found herself writing a detailed letter to Robert Sterling, the Billionaire founder and CEO of Sterling Industries. She had never communicated directly with Mr. Sterling before, and she wasn't even sure if he would see the letter, but she felt that Maria's story needed to reach someone who could truly understand its significance. In her letter, Dr. Collins described Maria's work ethic, her dedication to her daughter's education, and her ongoing commitment to helping children in the community. She explained the financial sacrifice Maria had made over the years, and the way she had chosen to share her hard-earned savings with children who needed help. "Mr. Sterling," she wrote in closing, "I have worked in corporate environments for 15 years, and I have never encountered anyone whose actions so perfectly embody the values of hard work, sacrifice, and generosity that we claim to value in our society. Maria Washington may clean our offices, but her character and her commitment to helping others make her one of the most remarkable people I have ever met." Dr. Collins sent the letter not really expecting a response, but feeling that she had done the right thing in bringing Maria's story to light. She had no way of knowing that her letter would set in motion a series of events that would change Maria's life forever. 2 days after Dr. Collins sent her letter, Robert Sterling's executive assistant placed it on his desk along with his morning briefing materials. Mr. Sterling received hundreds of letters and emails every week, most of them requests for donations or business proposals. But something about the subject line of Dr. Collins' letter caught his attention: an employee whose character deserves recognition. Robert Sterling had built his company from nothing over 20 years earlier, and he had never forgotten the struggles of his early years. Born into poverty, he had worked his way through college as a janitor himself, cleaning office buildings at night while studying computer science during the day. The combination of hard work, determination, and several lucky breaks had eventually led to the creation of Sterling Industries, making him one of the wealthiest people in the country. But despite his success, Mr. Sterling had always felt a special connection to the employees who did the unglamorous but essential work that kept his company running. He made it a point to know the names of the security guards, the maintenance staff, and the janitorial workers, even though most CEOs never bothered to acknowledge such employees existed. As he read Dr. Collins' letter about Maria Washington, Robert Sterling found himself deeply moved. Here was a woman who exemplified everything he admired about the American work ethic, yet she was doing it in circumstances that required incredible personal sacrifice. The idea that someone earning a modest salary had managed to save such a substantial amount of money for her daughter's education, while also helping other children in need, struck him as genuinely heroic. Mr. Sterling read the letter 3 times, each time becoming more convinced that he needed to meet Maria Washington personally. He had built his fortune through recognizing exceptional character when he saw it, and Dr. Collins' description of Maria suggested someone whose values aligned perfectly with his own. That afternoon, Mr. Sterling called his head of security and asked him to discreetly gather some information about Maria Washington's employment record and background. He wanted to verify Dr. Collins' account and learn more about this remarkable employee before taking any action. The report he received the following day confirmed everything Dr. Collins had written and added additional details that impressed him even more. Maria had never missed a day of work in 12 years, except for 3 occasions when her daughter had been seriously ill. She had never filed a complaint or grievance, had received consistently excellent performance reviews, and was widely respected by both the security staff and the few employees who interacted with her regularly. Most significantly, the report confirmed that Maria had indeed been living on approximately half her salary for over a decade. The company's payroll records showed that she had never increased her lifestyle despite several small raises over the years, suggesting that she had maintained her commitment to saving for her daughter's education even as her income grew. Robert Sterling made a decision that would surprise everyone involved, including Maria herself. He was going to find a way to meet with Maria Washington, but not in a way that would embarrass her or disrupt her work routine. He wanted to learn more about her story directly from her, and he wanted to find a way to recognize her extraordinary character in a manner that would truly make a difference in her life. As he sat in his office looking out at the city skyline, Robert Sterling reflected on the irony of the situation. He was surrounded by people every day who were worth millions of dollars. Yet the most impressive person in his building was apparently a janitor who earned $30,000 a year and gave half of it away to help children she had never met. He realized that Maria Washington represented everything he valued most about human character, and he was determined to find a way to honor that character in a manner worthy of her extraordinary sacrifices. The question was how to do it without overwhelming or embarrassing a woman who clearly valued her privacy and her dignity above all else. Robert Sterling's plan to meet Maria Washington required careful consideration. He understood that approaching her during her work hours might make her uncomfortable or worried about her job security. Instead, he decided to arrange what would appear to be a coincidental meeting in a more neutral setting. After reviewing Maria's file, Mr. Sterling learned that she typically finished her shift at 2:30 in the afternoon and often stopped at a small diner called Murphy's Kitchen for coffee before picking up her daughter from school. On a Thursday afternoon in late March, Robert Sterling walked into Murphy's Kitchen wearing jeans and a simple sweater, looking nothing like the billionaire CEO who usually appeared in business magazines wearing expensive suits. Maria was sitting at her usual table near the window, sipping coffee and reading a letter from one of Keisha's prospective colleges. She had developed the habit of taking 30 minutes to decompress after work before dealing with the afternoon's responsibilities. Mr. Sterling approached her table hesitantly. "Excuse me, are you Maria Washington?" Maria looked up, surprised to be recognized by someone she didn't know. "Yes, I am. Do I know you?" "My name is Robert Sterling," he said, extending his hand. "I own the company where you work. I was hoping I could speak with you for a few minutes, if you have time." Maria's heart immediately began racing. In 12 years of working at Sterling Industries, she had never had any interaction with senior management, let alone the owner of the company. Her first thought was that she must have done something wrong or that budget cuts were forcing layoffs. Please, sit down, Mr. Sterling, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Is everything all right with my work? Mr. Sterling sat across from her and smiled reassuringly. Your work is excellent, Maria. In fact, that's exactly what I wanted to talk to you about. I received a letter from Dr. Jennifer Collins about you, and I wanted to meet you personally to hear your story. Maria relaxed slightly, but she was still confused about why the owner of a multi-billion-dollar company would want to talk to her personally. What kind of story, Mr. Sterling? Dr. Collins wrote to me about your dedication to your daughter's education and your work with children at the community center, he explained. She told me that you've been saving half your salary for 12 years to pay for your daughter's college, and that you've been donating money to help other children as well. Maria shifted uncomfortably in her seat. She had never intended for her personal financial decisions to become public knowledge, and she certainly hadn't expected them to reach the attention of her employer's CEO. I hope I haven't done anything inappropriate, Mr. Sterling, she said. I keep my personal life completely separate from my work. You've done nothing inappropriate at all, Mr. Sterling replied quickly. In fact, what you've done is extraordinary, and that's why I wanted to meet you. Can you tell me about your daughter? Dr. Collins mentioned she wants to be a doctor. Maria's face brightened as it always did when she talked about Keisha. She's amazing, Mr. Sterling. She's been accepted to 3 different colleges, and she's maintained a 4.2 GPA throughout high school while working part-time. She's wanted to be a doctor since she was 8 years old, and she's never wavered from that goal. And you've been saving half your salary to make that dream possible. Yes, sir, Maria replied. Education is the most important thing I can give her. I dropped out of high school when I got pregnant, and while I eventually got my GED, I always regretted not having more opportunities. I was determined that Keisha would have every chance to succeed. Mr. Sterling leaned forward, genuinely interested in her story. That must have required incredible sacrifice. How did you manage to live on half your income for so many years? Maria shrugged, as if the question was unnecessary. You do what you have to do. We lived in a small apartment. I cooked every meal at home. We shopped at thrift stores, and we didn't take vacations or buy things we didn't absolutely need. But we had everything that mattered. We had each other, and we had hope for Keisha's future. Dr. Collins also mentioned that you've been helping other children through the community center, Mr. Sterling said. Yes, that was Keisha's idea. Actually, Maria explained. When we calculated the total cost of her education, we realized we had saved more than we strictly needed. Keisha said it would be wrong to keep money we didn't need when there were other children in our neighborhood who could benefit from educational support. Mr. Sterling was quiet for a moment, processing what he was hearing. In his world of corporate boardrooms and wealthy investors, he regularly encountered people who claimed to value hard work and generosity, but their actions rarely matched their words. Here was a woman who had lived those values for over a decade without any expectation of recognition or reward. Maria, can I ask you something? He said. Why didn't you ever apply for tuition assistance or financial aid programs through the company? Sterling Industries has several employee education benefit programs that could have helped with your daughter's college costs. Maria looked embarrassed. I didn't know about those programs, Mr. Sterling. Nobody ever told me about them, and I never thought to ask. I just assumed that someone in my position wouldn't be eligible for that kind of help. This revelation hit Mr. Sterling hard. He realized that there was a communication gap in his company that had prevented valuable employees like Maria from accessing benefits that were designed to help them. He made a mental note to address this systemic issue, but his immediate concern was finding a way to recognize Maria's extraordinary character and dedication. Maria, I want to ask you about the children you've been helping at the community center, he said. Dr. Collins mentioned that your donations have made a significant impact. Can you tell me more about that? Maria's eyes lit up as she began describing the changes she had witnessed. There's a boy named Marcus who's incredibly smart, but never had access to a computer. Now he's helping other kids learn technology skills. And there's a girl named Aaliyah who has amazing artistic talent that nobody ever recognized before. The art program we helped start has given her a chance to develop her skills, and she's already talking about applying to art schools. How many children have benefited from your donations? The after-school program serves about 40 children regularly, Maria explained. But the improvements we've funded benefit all of them. Better tutoring, more supplies, field trips to educational sites they would never have been able to visit otherwise. Mrs. Henderson, who runs the program, says the children's academic performance has improved dramatically. Mr. Sterling had heard enough to confirm what Dr. Collins had written in her letter. Maria Washington was indeed an extraordinary person whose actions embodied the best of human character. But what impressed him most was her complete lack of self-awareness about how remarkable her story was. She spoke about her sacrifices and generosity as if they were the most natural things in the world. "Maria, I want to share something with you," Mr. Sterling said. "When I was your daughter's age, I was working as a janitor to pay my way through college. I cleaned office buildings at night and studied computer science during the day. I understand something about the sacrifices it takes to pursue education when you don't have family wealth to rely on." Maria looked at him with surprise. "You worked as a janitor, Mr. Sterling?" "For 4 years," he confirmed. "Some of the best people I've ever known have been janitors, security guards, and maintenance workers. They understand the value of honest work, and they appreciate opportunities that others take for granted." He paused, considering his next words carefully. "Maria, what you've done for your daughter and for those children at the community center represents the kind of character and values that I've tried to build my company around. I believe in rewarding exceptional people when I encounter them." Maria felt a flutter of nervousness in her stomach. "Mr. Sterling, I appreciate your kind words, but I don't need any special recognition. I just do my job and try to help where I can." "I understand that you're not looking for recognition," Mr. Sterling replied. "But sometimes recognition finds people whether they're looking for it or not. Maria, I want to do something for you and your family, and I want to do something for those children you've been helping." Before Maria could protest, he continued, "First, I'm going to establish a full college scholarship fund for your daughter. Not just tuition, but room and board, books, and everything else she'll need through medical school. She shouldn't have to work part-time jobs or worry about money while she's pursuing her dream of becoming a doctor." Maria's eyes filled with tears, and she struggled to find words. "Mr. Sterling, I can't accept something like that. It's too much. It's not too much for someone who has given half their income for 12 years to ensure their child's success," he replied firmly. "But that's just the beginning. Second, I want to make a substantial donation to the Riverside Community Center in your name. Enough money to expand their programs significantly and help many more children than they're currently able to serve." "Mr. Sterling, this is overwhelming," Maria said, wiping tears from her eyes. "There's more," he continued gently. "I'm offering you a position in our company's new community outreach department. The job would involve identifying and supporting educational programs for underprivileged children throughout the city. You would use your experience and your understanding of what these children need to help us make a real difference in their lives." Maria stared at him in disbelief. "You're offering me a different job?" "A better job," Mr. Sterling clarified, "with a salary that reflects the value you would bring to this work. Full benefits including health insurance and retirement planning, and the opportunity to impact hundreds of children's lives instead of just a few dozen you're helping now." "But I don't have a college degree," Maria protested. "I only have my G." "You have 12 years of experience managing finances, making sacrificial decisions for long-term goals, and understanding what children from struggling families need to succeed," Mr. Sterling replied. "That's worth more than most college degrees when it comes to this kind of work." Maria sat in stunned silence, trying to process everything she had heard. Her life was changing so dramatically in the span of a single conversation that she could barely comprehend it. "Why are you doing this, Mr. Sterling?" she finally asked. "Because people like you are rare, Maria," he answered honestly. "I met thousands of people who talk about values like hard work, sacrifice, and generosity. But I've met very few who actually live those values the way you have. When I find someone like you, I want to support them and give them the resources to make an even bigger impact. He leaned back in his chair and smiled. Besides, I think there's something poetic about a janitor who used to clean my building becoming the person who helps transform educational opportunities for children throughout this city. Maria realized that her life was about to change in ways she had never imagined possible. The financial security she had worked so hard to achieve for Keisha was now assured, and she was being offered the opportunity to expand her impact far beyond what she had ever dreamed. "Mr. Sterling," she said slowly, "if I accept this position, I want to make sure that the children currently in the community center program continue to receive support. And I want to find ways to help other parents who are struggling to provide educational opportunities for their children the way I was. Those will be your primary responsibilities," he assured her. "You'll have a substantial budget and the freedom to develop programs that address exactly those needs." As they concluded their conversation, Maria realized that her years of quiet sacrifice and generosity had led to an outcome she could never have anticipated. She had saved and donated money simply because it was the right thing to do, never expecting recognition or reward. Now, she was being given the opportunity to transform her personal mission into a career that could benefit countless children and families. When Maria picked up Keisha from school that afternoon, she could hardly contain her excitement as she shared the news of their changed circumstances. Keisha's reaction was everything Maria could have hoped for. "Mom, this means you can finally stop worrying about money," Keisha said, hugging her mother tightly. "And you can help so many more children than we ever could on our own. It also means that your dreams of becoming a doctor are completely secure," Maria replied. "You can focus entirely on your studies without worrying about how we'll pay for everything." That evening, as they sat together planning how Maria could make the biggest impact in her new role, both mother and daughter reflected on the unexpected turn their lives had taken. Maria's story had begun with a simple commitment to provide her daughter with educational opportunities, but it had evolved into something much larger. 6 months later, the Maria Washington Educational Foundation had provided scholarships to 37 children, established after-school programs in 5 different neighborhoods, and created a mentorship network that connected successful professionals with students from underprivileged backgrounds. Maria's understanding of the challenges these families faced, combined with Robert Sterling's financial resources, proved to be a powerful combination for creating meaningful change. Dr. Jennifer Collins often reflected on the letter she had written to Mr. Sterling, amazed at how profoundly it had changed Maria's life. But what impressed her most was that Maria's character had remained unchanged despite her new circumstances. She continued to work with the same dedication and humility she had always shown, and she still arrived at work early and stayed late to ensure that every child in her programs received the attention they deserved. Maria's story became an inspiration throughout Sterling Industries and beyond. But for Maria herself, the greatest satisfaction came from knowing that her years of sacrifice had created opportunities not just for Keisha, but for hundreds of other children who now had chances they would never have had otherwise. In the end, Maria Washington's legacy was not defined by the recognition she received or the position she attained, but by the simple truth that had guided her from the beginning. When you invest in children's education and believe in their potential, you create possibilities that can transform entire communities. Her story proved that extraordinary generosity and unwavering dedication, regardless of one's circumstances, have the power to change not just individual lives, but the world itself.